STEM Week across the Commonwealth with a focus on young people learning about potential job opportunities in the field.
Today, Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll and other state leaders were in Springfield with dozens of Massachusetts students for a hands-on learning experience. And Western Mass News reporter Matt Price gives us a look inside.
Lots to be hyped about on Wednesday, as dozens of young STEM students from Western Mass and across the Commonwealth put skills they learned in the classroom to the test. All part of the second annual Mass Makes Innovation Challenge held at the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield.
We are absolutely thrilled to be able to sort of excite and show students what's possible in advanced manufacturing technologies, everything from advanced functional fabrics to microelectronics and semiconductors.
The event was organized by the Center for Advanced Manufacturing at Mass Tech and included appearances by Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll and Education Secretary Patrick Tutwiler. The main goals to get these students some actual hands-on experience and develop innovative technological skills that could determine if they want to join that field. Both state leaders talked to Western Mass News about the importance of this investment.
You know, so many of our students are mission-oriented. They want to know that what they're working on has a relationship to real-life challenges and opportunities, and that's what this week is about. How do we think about the ways that we can make this planet better, our communities stronger, and solve everyday problems?
We're really just lifting up, hey, look at all these incredible opportunities that you're engaging with right now in your classroom, and look what it connects to in terms of opportunities down the road.
Some of the activities for the kids included building a cardboard bed, designing a backpack, and testing out some robotics. With everyone getting this first-hand training, it could prove to be a game changer.
What we want to happen is for students to be exposed to things that creates an aha moment. And so hopefully events like this, somebody is going to be a robotics engineer or a microelectronics fab technician or whatever.
Thanks to this event, all of these kids could have the opportunity in the future to make a big difference in the world. In Springfield, Matt Price, Western Mass News.